And we are here.
As ready as we'll ever be.
So the following files that make up episode 2 of our United States of Terror series, we're discussing extreme child abuse, family annihilation, and several murders across 4 different states. The content is heavy and the reality is very grim. So listener discretion is strongly advised.
It's going to get hectic. Can I even say dubious?
Dubious. So welcome back to Frights. Last time we opened the map and started putting pins into the dark underbelly of the country. If episode 1 taught us anything, it's that the postcard version of America is the sunny beaches, quiet suburbs, and open roads always have a shadow.
Ain't that the truth?
But today the road trip continues.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 2 of our United States of Terror series. We're crossing the state lines to prove once again that the geography of evil is universal. Today's route takes us through the palm tree-lined suburbs of California, up to the high-altitude developments of Colorado, down to the grim industrial stretch highway in Delaware, and straight into the sweltering, chaotic depths of Florida.
Oh, we go to Florida?
4 states, 4 nightmares that prove the most terrifying monsters don't live in haunted houses. They may live right next door. Ooh. Poopy. I'm ready to garden.
I do not have it for today.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm gardening. If you got it, light it, spark it, whatever you want to say.
Indeed.
Cheers. That tasted like straight pepper.
Not like it.
Yeah. That one wasn't that bad, though. Now we're moving to the first one of the night. So we usually look at ghosts or master criminals, but today the monster's much more mundane, actually, and much more terrifying. In 2018, the world was rocked by the discovery of the Turpin family. To the outside world, they were a quirky, religious family who wore matching clothes and loved Disneyland. But inside their home, it was a literal house of horrors. Chains, starvations, and a total sensory blackout.
Yeah.
So this specific case does involve extreme child abuse, psychological torture, and prolonged captivity. We are discussing the systematic deprivation and imprisonment of 13 different siblings by their own parents.
So this is horrific, I see.
Yeah. This is a story of profound survival, but the details are harrowing.
Seems like it. Especially in this case.
Yeah, so again, listener discretion strongly advised.
Incredibly strongly.
Incredibly strongly. Now, to understand the Turpins, you have to look at their public face and their public image. David and Louise Turpin had 13 children. They often did appear in public in color-coordinated clothes. All the girls wore the same dress and all the boys had the same haircut. They took trips to Disneyland and even had public vow renewals in Las Vegas. But if you looked closer at the photos, the signs were definitely there. The children were incredibly thin. Their smiles looked brittle. They were quote-unquote homeschooled, which made this case a legal loophole that was used to keep them off the grid entirely. No doctors, no friends, and no one to see the bruises or, the ribs.
Sounds about right, unfortunately.
Inside the house, time didn't work the way it does for you and me. The parents forced the children to live on a nocturnal schedule. They were kept awake all night and forced to sleep during the day.
Really?
This wasn't just a quirk, this was a tactical move. It ensured that the children weren't active when the neighbors would be looking out their windows. and their conditions were medieval, to say the least. If the children misbehaved, which would mean something as small as washing their hands above the wrist, they were shackled to their beds with heavy chains and padlocks for months at a time.
Sorry, washing her hands above the... What does that even mean?
Like, quite literally, when you wash your hands, like if you go above your wrist, so like your forearm. In some religious households, it's seen as something or something or other. I don't know. I know that definitely is like a rule in some households, because I've heard of like a few handful of people that follow that rule.
I don't even know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it's a religious thing, but now I'm starting to question it. Also, here's another tactic. The parents would buy apple pies specifically and leave them on the counter, forbidding the children to even touch them. The children were even lucky to get one small meal a day, while the parents ate takeout right in front of them.
Oh, the worst type of fucking people.
And they were only allowed to take a shower once a year.
Oh, God, I can only imagine how the fuck that house smelled. Oh!
I feel so horrible. I feel so bad for these kids.
Oh!
I feel horrible for them.
Oh, I can only imagine the smell. Oh, God.
So the archive of this case changed on January 14th of 2018. Jordan Turpin, apologies, then at the time was 17 years old, but looked like a child half her age due to stunned growth, crawled out the window. She'd been planning this for 2 years prior. She took a deactivated cell phone she found in the house and called 911. Actual quote from the 911 call: "I just ran away from home. We lived in a house of horrors. My 2 little sisters right now are chained up to their bed."
Holy shit, I remember actually reading up on this case.
When police arrived, they found a 29-year-old woman who weighed only 82 pounds. They found children who didn't know what pills or cops were. The parents were stunned, not with guilt, but with the fact that their conditioned world had finally been breached.
Sounds about right.
Now, the question everyone asks is, why didn't they just leave? There were adult children in that house, some in their 20s, even pushing 30. But the archives show a master class of coercive control. David and Louise Turpin used religious dive right stuff to convince their children that the outside world was a literal hellscape filled with monsters. They were told that if they left, they would die or be captured by people even worse. The physical chains were just the backup. The real chains were built into their minds. David and Louise Turpin pleaded guilty to 14 felony counts and were sentenced to life in prison, with a possibility of parole after 25 years. But obviously the story doesn't end with just an arrest. The Turpin siblings, now set free, had to learn how to live. Now imagine being 30 years old and having to learn how to use a microwave for the first time. Imagine eating your first meal or seeing a doctor. Their journey towards recovery is one of the most incredible examples of human resilience in the modern era. They didn't just survive, they started to heal.
Which is quite surprising after all that.
This file, I almost read something I probably should not have. We're moving on to the next case. Sorry.
What?
No, I made a side note and I almost read the side note.
Oh boy.
Oopsies.
Maybe that.
Now we're moving on to the next case, I believe, in Colorado.
Oh.
Now, the narrative of the Petit family involves extreme physical violence, sexual assault, and arson. It details the torture and murder of a mother and her 2 daughters, and this is one of the darkest files that we're going to actually look at tonight.
Is it really?
Yeah, so listener discretion is not only highly advised, it's mandatory in this case.
Oh, for this one specifically, it's man.
Mm-hmm. In July of 2007, the Petit family lived the life everyone in the suburbs dreamed of. Dr. William Petit was a respected physician. Jennifer Hawk Petit was a beloved school nurse, and their daughters Haley and Michaela were bright, active, and full of promise. But in a single night, that dream was incinerated. This case didn't just shock the town, it changed the laws of entire states and forced a conversation about the nature of evil and the failure of the patrol system. And before I get that, I'm going to try to finish this bowl. Here's... I think I held it for like 2 long. Oh no! Gotta love coughing ASMR. Oh, Jesus. Moving on. Excuse me. Moving on after that burp. The horror didn't start with the house. It started actually at a grocery store. On the evening of July 2nd, 2007, Jennifer and her daughter Michaela were at a local Stop and Shop. They were spotted by Joshua Kuminversky, which was a career criminal out on parole. He didn't know who they were, but he saw their expensive car and followed them home. He called his associate, Stephen Hayes, which was another paroled convict. They weren't masterminds by any means. They were optimistic predators who saw a soft target in a wealthy neighborhood. They waited until their lights went out, then they moved in. Around 3 a.m., the men entered the house. They found Dr. William Petit sleeping on the sun porch. They beat him with a baseball bat, tied him up, and threw him into the basement. They then moved upstairs to the bedrooms where Jennifer and the girls were sleeping. For the next 7 hours, the Petits were held hostage. The archives of this case are a record of psychological and physical torture. The men split them up, one guarding the family while the other went to get supplies. They were calm, calculated, and utterly different to the humanity of their victims. At 9 in the morning, the plan took a surreal turn. Stephen Hayes drove Jennifer to her local bank. He told her that if she didn't withdraw $15,000, like US dollars, his partner would then kill her whole family. Jennifer was a hero. While at the bank, she managed to alert the teller that her family was being held hostage. The teller called the police as soon as they left. But by the time the police arrived at the Petit home and set up the perimeter, they hesitated. They were following protocol for a hostage situation, not realizing that they were dealing with 2 men who had no intention of leaving witnesses. While the police waited outside, the nightmare reached its final act, and inside the house, the girls were tied to their beds. Jennifer was assaulted, then strangled. The men doused the house in gasoline. In the basement, Dr. William Petit managed to crawl his way to an exterior door, bleeding profusely from his head wounds. He escaped just as the house erupted into flames. But sadly, his wife and his daughters didn't. Haley and Michaela then later died of smoke inhalation, still tied to their beds. Hayes and Komarvonsky were caught as they tried to ram their way through the police perimeters in the Petite's own car. Their trial was a media circus that lasted years. Both men were sentenced to the death penalty, but after Connecticut abolished the death penalty in 2012, the state Supreme Court applied it retroactively in 2015, their sentences were commuted to life without parole. The real archive of the Petite case lives in the Petite Family Foundation, started by William Petite. He went from a man who lost everything to a state representative now, fighting for stricter parole laws and victims' rights. He proved that even from the ashes of the worst night imaginable, you could still build something that serves light.
Well, that starts that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he still is a state representative.
Oh, that's awesome. Huh?
Yeah. Also, that was for Connecticut. I just realized I put the wrong states in the intro. Yeah, it's California, Connecticut, Colorado, and Delaware. We're not doing Florida today. Florida is next one.
Gotcha.
My bad. Whoopsie daisies. Oh, jeez. I think there's 4 in here, if I remember correctly. Now, the following file includes the homicide of a 6-year-old child. It does discuss themes of sexual assault, physical trauma, and the intense media scrutiny of a grieving family. Listener discretion is mandatory.
Things to be said in this case. It's
December 26th of 1996. The wrapping paper is still on the floor of the Ramsey mansion. But while the rest of the world is waking up to a slow post-holiday morning, Patsy Ramsey is calling 911 in a panic. She found a 3-page ransom note on the back stairs. Her daughter, Dawn Bonnet, the tiny beauty queen of Boulder, is missing. What started as a kidnapping investigation ended hours later in the basement of that very house, revealing a mystery that 3 decades of technology and theories haven't even been able to crack.
Oh, so this is a cold case.
Yeah, this was a cold case. I think it was recently, not cold no more, though.
Oh, okay. So
I think.
Recently got solved.
Don't quote me on that.
Well, don't say.
I don't know.
Well, don't mention it if you don't care.
I'm not 100% sure. I stated that. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Anyway, any case. The first thing that strikes you with the Ramsey archives is honestly the ransom note. The kidnappers, even though it was 3 pages long, kind of kept it relatively short. We have your kid, give us money and don't call the cops. This note was 3 pages long, written on a notepad found inside the house, using a pen also found inside the house. It demanded exactly 118,000 US dollars, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. The foreign faction the note claimed to represent the foreign faction the note claimed to represent uses phrase from action movies like Speed and Dirty Harry. To investigators, it didn't look like kidnappers' demands, it looked like a script. The Boulder Police Department made a fatal error, though. They didn't seal the house. Friends, a family, and even a priest were walking through the crime scene all morning. And around 1 p.m., a detective asked John Ramsey and a family friend to search the house for anything out of the ordinary. John went straight to a small windowless room in the basement, the wine cellar. There, he found his daughter. She had been struck in the head and strangled with a makeshift, garrote?
What?
Makeshift Garrow?
Garrett looks like it.
Garrett. I'm gonna look up what that is real quick.
Yeah, 'cause I'm kind of curious what's up. Never heard that.
Yeah, like a Garrett or a Garrett.
Garrot.
Garrot. Apologies. Commonly pronounced as Garrett or Garrot. Okay, cool. Mechanism. It functions as a by wrapping a leisure around the neck, often tightening it with a stick. Oh! It's a torture method.
Oh, that's fine.
Or not a torture method, it's a history and origin. The terms originate from Spain, where it was a primary method for execution for centuries.
Oh.
Yeah.
Even though it sounds French, man.
That does sound like something the French would do. I'm surprised it's Spain, but still. Moving on. And by carrying her body upstairs and placing her on the living room floor, John inevitably destroyed much of the forensic evidence that could have identified their killer.
Makes sense.
So pretty much nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows what they're doing. As the autopsy began, a small detail emerged that changed the timeline. Pineapple. There was a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with Brooke Ramsey's fingerprints on it. Now, forensic analysis showed that John Bennett had undigested pineapple in her stomach, which means she had eaten it shortly before she died. Her parents maintained that she was asleep and never came back downstairs. It's a tiny detail, but the archives of the family theory. It's the smoking gun that suggests someone in the house wasn't telling the truth about that night.
Yeah.
On the other side of the file, you have the intruder theory. There was a broken window in the basement, and there was an unidentified footprint near the body. And most importantly, there was unidentified male DNA found on her clothing.
That's just fine.
Just going to leave it at DNA and just you put two and two together on that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
In 2008, new touch DNA technology identified genetic material that didn't belong to anyone in the Ramsey family. This led to the district attorney to officially extradite John Pansy and their son Brooke. However, the intruder has never been found. Was it a drifter? A local obsessed with pageantry? Or someone who knew the house well enough to write a 3-page note on the family's own stationery? The real tragedy of the Ramsey archives is how the case was consumed by the public. Because John Bennett was a child beauty queen, the media turned the case into a spectacle. They saw loops of her in makeup and costumes, juxtaposed with the grim reality of the basement. The trial by tabloid happened long before a courtroom was ever involved. Patsy Ramsey passed away in 2006, never knowing who killed her daughter, and the case remains open, a cold file in Boulder.
It's a fucked up case in general, seems like.
Yeah, I believe that was Colorado. Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
I'm trying to get to it because I think it like scrolled me all the way up to a previous story.
Yeah, I get you.
Not story, case. All right. Got it. The following narrative involves serial murder and extreme sadism. It discusses the targeted abduction of women and the forensic detail of their deaths. This is a gritty chapter in the Delaware archives. Listener discretion is again mandatory.
That a very gruesome one, it seems.
Yeah. I only ever find the gruesome ones. This is the most gruesome cases from each state, or at least one gruesome case from each state.
Yeah, yes, man.
Yeah. In 1987, the small wonder state of Delaware lost its innocence. A shadow began haunting the motels and truck stops along Route 40. For a year, the state's first known serial killer turned the highway into his private hunting ground. He was a family man, electrician, and a nice guy, according to his neighbors. But his van was a rolling chamber of terrors. Mwahaha. Evil laugh into my gardening tool. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oy. So November of 1987, the body of Shirley Ellis was found on the side of the road. She had been bound and tortured. Then, June of 1988, Catherine DiMario was found. She had been literally processed, her body scrubbed of any evidence, but the brutality was unmistakable. By the time Margaret Fayer and Michelle Gordon vanished, Delaware was in a state of pure panic. The killer wasn't a drifter passing through, he knew these roads. He knew the rhythms of the night shift and the vulnerable women who walked the Route 40 stroll. The break didn't come from high-tech satellites, it came from undercover officers named Renee Lano. She took to the streets posing as a private entertainment worker to lure out the predator.
Good save.
Good save. One night, a man in a blue Ford van pulled up. He was polite. He was Stephen Brian Pennell. Lano didn't get snatched, but she managed to pluck a few hairs from the back seat of the van and noted the vehicle's interior. When police eventually searched the van, they found a kit that looked like it belonged to a medieval insequencer, with pliers, whips, needles, and even handcuffs. Can't tell if he was trying to torture women or if he was just having a good time, if you know what I mean. Never mind.
Dang.
That's horrible.
Dang. That was just foul.
Yeah. I apologize. That was okay. Moving on. In 1988, DNA was the new kid on the block, and the Route 40 case became one of its first in U.S. history to heavily lean on it. But it was the fibers that truly closed the archive. The victim's clothing was covered in tiny, distinct blue carpet fibers. Forensic specialists traced these fibers back to a very specific type of carpeting used in Pennell's van. The odds of those fibers being on the victims by chance were 1 billion to 1. It was the first time in Delaware history that such trace evidence was used to secure a death penalty conviction. Stephen Pennell was a different kind of monster, though. Once he was caught and the evidence was laid out, he didn't fight like a cornered animal. In a bizarre move, he eventually fired his lawyers and requested that the state carry out his execution.
Oh, wow.
He didn't want to spend his life in a cell. He wanted the fatality he had dealt to his victims. In 1992, Pennell became the first executed man in Delaware in decades. He went to his death without ever expressing remorse, taking the locations of his final victim, Kathleen Mayer, to his grave with him. And that's all.
One of the dramatic way out.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, I'm a monster. Kill me as well since I killed people.
No, it's more along the lines of like, fuck this. I'm not sitting here in the cell waiting to die. Y'all might as well do it now. Pull the plug now. I don't got time for this shit.
Pretty much. Thanks for riding shotgun with us on this massive cross-country session. If this gave you a new perspective on the monsters next door, be sure to hit the subscribe button, all that happy jazz. Yeah.
YouTube shit we have to say.
Standard YouTube promo. But before you click away, if you want to, we do want to see and read some comments. Which of these 4 states do you think birthed the most chilling case and why? I want to debate about it. I want to argue with someone.
That sounds like a horrible idea to say in a YouTube video.
I want to cause beef over, not like actual beef, but like it'd be a cool discussion, like a cool debate on like what's like.
Now someone's gonna immediately pause the video, not understand a single part of the last bit you just said, take that out of context, and it's gonna start an entire thread in the middle of the fucking YouTube comments, just arguing how wrong you are.
I want that.
You know what? Fair enough.
That's the point of a debate. Like, obviously not like a harmful argument. I don't want anyone to get their feelings hurt like too badly. But like, I do want to debate. I'm genuinely curious what people think the most gruesome cases are and why.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But stay safe. Bye.